All systems go. Cleared for takeoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, aka ToeTagginTambo, back here for another Q&A show. PGA this week for the Shriners Open. Got my guy Andy Lack here with me as always. We're going to break all things down for you. Final weather. Some people are looking at that. Talking about weather. It is Vegas. I know Andy's going to mention something on that. We're going to go break it down for you within the tiers, some bigger stands, see if there's any late ownership steam. We were actually just talking pre-show about some of the ownerships. We might be aligned on some of these things. So we'll talk about that as we go throughout. We are 0 for 2 on trying to cash in on this $200 single entry. So got it back here again. We're ready to roll that at the end. If those that don't know are just joining us for the first time, we take all the thoughts from the show. We know most people out there, have limited time, or this is trying to catch the final thoughts of the week. We set it up so we do a single entry. I'm going to enter it myself on the $200 single entry. I think this week it's only 10K up top instead of 20K, but it's still 10K. And then I give 25% back. It's a coincided unit here. Me and Andy, we're going to give 25% back to the community. So if we can ship that thing, that'd be 2,500 coming back to the people. Andy, without further ado, man, I'll bring you in. What can you tell me, man, this week? How was your excitement level for this one? Last week, you were pretty fired up.
The excitement level has not waned whatsoever. Hitting Luke List last week in that crazy 5-man playoff that I was on the golf course for it. The text started flying in about Luke List, who I think we've all come to know as like one of the worst, if not the worst putter on tour, is draining 50-foot bombs. And you look at Luke List's statistical profile from last week, it's like the most anti-Luke List week that you would expect. You tell me Luke List wins a golf tournament, it's because he gains 12 strokes ball striking and is a neutral putter. Luke List was an okay ball striker last week and gained 10 strokes with the short game and putting, which kind of just encapsulates the fall swing in a nutshell. It's like you never know what you're going to get. There's a lot of fun. There's some fun storylines if you're willing to, if you have the time and the room for them. It kind of, what you put in is what you get out to the fall swing. And so far, I think you and I have put in a lot and gotten out a lot so far. So excited for another week of it.
Yeah, I do appreciate you bringing that up. So I get to have my victory lap because I couldn't make the Fantasy Golf Degenerates this week. Shout out to our guy, Degenerate75. He hopped on with Kenny. It was a lot of fun. Kenny's story this week, by the way, absolutely wild. People laying down on fires. He's setting people up on certain drugs and whatnot. Who knows? You got to go listen to it. Fantasy Golf Degenerates, check it out. I know your podcast, Inside Golf Podcast with Tom Jacobs, the man got the job done over there. So he's exciting. And then, yeah, anyway, going back to it, I hit the Luke List with you, 50-1. So pumped about that. Didn't get to be on the show to talk about it, but that was huge. Like you said, just to see him make that bomb. I don't see that very often. That was the last time I saw something like that was the Canadian Open. I was not on that win, but getting the job done in the Canadian Open, that was nice. Luke List last week, same sort of thing in a 5-man playoff where they thought it might go to the next day. So excited to get in, talk some Shriners. Sean's already on you, man. Another big dog Bo. I was on Bo last week. It didn't fully turn out, but we'll talk about him. He's here. Funny enough, too, Luke List down $8,400 and doesn't seem like the ownership's going there. So we'll talk about him. Shout out to Stewie. Yes, do us a favor. If you're just joining us, hammer that like button, subscribe to this channel. When we get to 4,000 subscribers, we're going to be giving away a 6-month membership to SHIPITNation.com. Tweezy's here as always. Deacon 2, the legend. My guy, Haggy B. Couple of goats, he says. Love to see that. But Andy, let's dive in. Let's start with this weather. You had mentioned something. I saw your tweet come out. Final thoughts for the DFS stuff you've got going on this week over at rickrungood.com. Promo code Andy there if you guys want to check that out. Get access to the tools at rickrungood.com. But talk to us about the weather, because you'd mentioned a little bit of something about that. The weather does matter in Vegas. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, we've seen this tournament be pretty affected by wind in the past. It doesn't happen every year, but you go back to the 2017 Cantlay year, and that tournament was won at 9 under par. And if you are familiar with this golf course at all, it is just on paper one of the easiest golf courses on the entire PGA Tour. It's an It's very short, especially when you factor in the altitude. This does play at altitude. So whatever you're seeing on the scorecard, even add like an extra 30% of the distance that these guys are going to have at their disposal this week. But we saw in kind of a really windy, blustery year in 2017, this tournament be won at like 9 under par. Right. So wind can play a role here. Of course, we did not see that come to fruition last year. Tom Kim won at 24 under par. In a lot of years, you're getting guys 20 under par, 21, 22, 18, 19, 17. Sometimes we'll get a cut as high as 5 or 6 under par. But the one thing that I would say in terms of what would be worth paying attention to the weather in terms of this week, Thursday looks a lot worse than Friday. Friday looks like we're going to have pretty benign, pretty perfect scoreable conditions. And in that Thursday morning, it's going to get pretty blustery. Like I'm looking at Thursday morning right now at the Summerlin Wind Tower, and we're looking at like 25 mile per hour wind gusts at 8 a.m., 21 mile per hour wind gusts at 9 a.m. You go throughout the rest of the day and it kind of calms down a little bit. So it seems like Thursday morning, as it stands now, is the worst time to potentially be on the golf course based on those wind gusts. Not to mention the fact that it's really cold too. Like keep in mind that they're playing in Vegas, they're playing in a valley. So when the sunlight hits, it gets really warm later in the day, but the mornings and the evenings are a lot colder in Vegas. You have that wide varying degrees of temperatures anytime you're in a desert setting. And then Friday is like pretty perfect. Not really a breath of wind all day. So if you're asking me to make a decision, a judgment call, gun to my head, is there a side that I think is going to have a little bit better of a weather advantage? I would say if you're looking for a tiebreaker, those guys in the PM AM wave, if you can avoid those big Friday morning chilly wind gusts, you might see a bit of an advantage there.
Now, I do want to spend some time on this just a second, because what if I told you this? Ludwig, Cameron Davis, Poston, Siwoo Kim, Eric Cole, Hojgaard, Griot, everyone except Tom Kim in that upper like 8 guys all go out Thursday morning very early.
Wow. And they have Tom Kim in the afternoon, huh? I guess that makes sense because you think about a lot of weeks for the TV window on Friday afternoon where they get the most viewers. You probably want to have at least one of your big guns in that Friday afternoon TV window. I personally thought it would have been Tom Kim, but it looks like they're going with Aubert and a lot of the other stars in that Friday afternoon window. I mean, we'll get to talking about like the Tom Kim ownership as it pertains to everybody else in terms of the top options. But yeah, I think if you are making a stand based on the weather prediction that I have, you're going to have some difficult decisions. And I think the good thing about this is it's not enough of a potential edge that I would totally rework your player pool. Like I will tell you just now, I am playing a healthy amount of players that are going to be on the golf course on Thursday mornings. It's kind of the perfect type of like, oh, I'm in between Kevin Streelman and Austin Eckroat at 7,200. Does their tee time maybe help me put me over the edge?
Yeah, and I like that you said that because, again, when all the studs pretty much except Tom Kim are playing in it anyway, and it's not as crazy as we said. Obviously, like you said, it's a little bit colder for sure. That matters. 57 to 68 versus the afternoon is 73 to 77. That's definitely something. And then the wind is definitely up. Like you said, it's 14 to 15 miles per hour sustained, and it's 28 to 21 miles per hour, just, kind of going downwards for the gusts. It's not the craziest thing because it ends at like 9:30. So like you said, you're going to have to play some of those guys anyway. They're going to be able to battle their way through and find it or just kind of balance themselves and then come out and have good Fridays. So you can definitely see that too. But I like the call of using it as a tiebreaker. I always like it better anyway with what I would call guys down the board. In some cases, the quote unquote scrubs, because also the mindset factor. I talk about this all the time, but they feel just way better going out and just setting a number on Friday morning than having to get to a number and making those mental mistakes down the stretch that cause them to miss the cut. So remember, some of those guys, that paycheck, that made cut is everything, right? That's, they can now miss 2 or 3 cuts and not have to worry as much about the expenses and the travel and all the stuff that goes with it. So definitely think there's something to be said there. Anything else that you want to touch on with the weather? If not, talk to us a little bit about this course further, or anything else you want to add on this course that you can bring here.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief because this is one of the more vanilla courses on the PGA Tour. But with that being said, I would very much at a rudimentary, elementary level kind of distill the task at hand this week to wedge play from 100 to 150 yards and putting from 5 to 15 feet, right? Like if you have those two things on lock, you are going to have a massive, massive advantage on this golf course. In my opinion, this might be the easiest golf course off the tee on the entire PGA Tour. We get the rare combination of a very short course with wide fairways. This is not a narrow golf course. This is a golf course that has 35-yard with fairways, and it's not a long golf course that forces you to hit driver either. So even the shortest players in the field are going to have a massive amount of wedge shots from 150 to 100 yards, which is kind of one of the reasons like I'm a lot lower on a guy like Ludwig this week, because I actually think it devalues a lot of his off the tee skill because of that 2018 renovation that pushed back some of the bunkers. And you know, that's just like, yeah, maybe Ludwig has 75 yards in on every single shot, but are there going to be shorter players in this field that are just as deadly from 125 yards? Like, yeah, there will be. That's kind of the difference that I talk about all the time is it's like these bombers, these longer players, the way that they separate themselves is on golf courses where they have 150 yards in and everybody else has 200 yards in. Not on the golf courses where they have 100 yards in and everybody else has 150 yards in, if that makes sense. So we've seen all shapes and sizes compete here. If I'm distilling this down to two really, really important metrics that I think you want to focus in on this week, it's wedge play from 100 to 150 yards and who can hold the most putts from 5 to 15 feet. You're going to see guys get a ton of opportunities on this golf course. We're talking streaks. We're talking 8-9 birdies per round. In the case of some guys, you're probably going to need to get to -5 to feel safe about making the cut. Honestly, Tambo.
Yeah, I agree. And also that's going to be the thing, right? After day one, you're going to see the lineups that everyone thinks are set. Oh, they got all these guys at -5 or -4. They're going to feel really good about it. And then some of those guys are going to go backwards on Friday. So it's definitely going to be one for a sweat for the ages, if you will. The guy that you keep describing, though, I'm just looking at my numbers, looks like Eric Cole. Just crushes it with that wedge game, makes every putt, all the DraftKings points, all the birdies are better, the opportunities gained, solid on pretty much everything that you need for this course. And then you talked about it, even though like off the tee wouldn't be something you would say like is his main thing. He obviously has good stats all across, but it's not going to be like a Ludwig or something like that where it doesn't really matter. It's like you said, you could sort of see a better job of it this way of just going to some of these guys. So we'll talk about it. Let's do that. Let's get into these ranges. Like our guy Haggy says, don't think there's anyone else out there that breaks down the course like Andy. We know that. Thanks, that's Andy's specialty. Definitely love that. And I try and take as much as I can with that to move it over and apply it to the DFS angles. And that's what you just did. You just described it and I pick up the little things and try and put it down. And that one for me stands out. Mind you, Eric Cole getting at least somewhat ownership. We'll talk about him when we get there. Let's do this 10K range first though. You kind of already mentioned, I think, what's going to be a hard stand for you, at least sounds like it, but you've got Ludwig down to JT Poston. There's only 4 guys above 10K here. Thoughts on this range?
Yeah, listen, I have a tremendous, generally I'm on the other side of this in terms of travel does not matter in golf the way that it does in other sports. I don't care who you are. You're hopping 9 time zones in 11 days. We're going from Rome to Mississippi to Vegas in the span of 11 days. That's a big ask for anyone. I know he's 24 years old. You place that on top of the fact that I think this is a golf course that is going to devalue what Ludwig does best, right? You know, golf courses like Marco Simone, even more so, even Jackson Country Club, because get a lot of long irons at Jackson Country Club. Those are the types of golf courses where Ludwig's going to be able to hit a lot of drivers, hit a lot of long irons, separate himself from the field with his elite tee to green play. The only way to separate yourself on this golf course is if you're an awesome putter. And Ludwig's a fine putter, But for me, the combination of the travel spot combined with fairly robust ownership, right? Like he's going to be less than Tom Kim, but it's not like he will be unpopular. To me, Ludwig is the clear fade in that range. And the guy I'm highest on, I kind of alluded to this a little bit in my course breakdown, so I don't think this should be too much of a shock. I love JT Poston this week. I think the fact that he's probably the lowest owned in this range by my numbers is one of the many reasons to like him. But based on course fit as well, like if you're telling me of this group, who is the best at those two specific skills, you can make an argument for Tom Kim based on the fact that he's going up against stronger fields and he's probably in a vacuum a lot better than Poston like at golf. But if we're talking these types of tournaments, these types of golf courses, this is where JT Poston eats on a consistent basis. At 10K flat, probably 14-15% ownership is what I've got on Poston right now. Like that's the guy that I'm starting the majority of my lineups with.
Yeah, I got 14 for him right now, and I think that's about right. Even though I like him too, that's the two guys I like here actually Cam Davis and JT Poston. And you said enough, I think, on JT Poston. We could stay there, but Cam Davis, this is again a stretch. 4 top 10s in his last 5. 3rd at the Fortinet, 6th at the St. Jude, 7th at the Wyndham, 10th at the 3M Open. Solid stats across the board everywhere on those events. And then you go and look, and the wedge game is still strong. He has the off the tee game pretty much of Ludwig. You could say right now Ludwig's been better and obviously is the next coming. And I wasn't comparing him in that sense. I'm just saying when you talk about what his game is, it's that, but it's all the other stuff he has to go with. Yeah. He's top 5 in the last 50 rounds in the wedge game, DK scoring, birdies are better overall, like everything. So I think that makes sense. And then you go look at people just playing a lazy week. Again, we talk about this all the time. This is definitely the lazy season. Some call it the swing season, but it's the lazy season. Ludwig, Tom Kim, easy clicks up top, only a little bit more money to get to. Who cares? And I think Stewie brought up a good point, but I think you also did handle it in the second caveat that you had. He's talking about, everyone said last week, all the travel and all this, and then the dude ends up in the playoff anyway. Ludwig, that is, we're talking about, well, you've got that aspect, but then you mentioned it, like the off the tee, not as solid, not as much as what you need here. So there's guys, I think, in this next range, this 9K, that you can pick up a lot of other options up here and then just hope that he doesn't come through again. I still have him somewhere around 25%. I got Tom Kim around 27, and this will be, final changes I make over at shipitnation.com after for the projections with the final ownership. And that's just kind of where I land. I got Cam Davis somewhere around that 15 to 18 range, but higher than Poston. Any other thoughts on that stuff there?
No, let's jump down to the 9s, but just to give credence to what Stewie's saying, like, I have no interest in being on the other side of Ludwig as a talent. Like Sean says it too. Ludwig is the best player in this field, in my opinion. I was actually getting into this debate with one of my friends about who I think is going to have a better career when it's all said and done, Ludwig or Tom Kim. To me, it is Ludwig clearly based on the skill set that he has for modern PGA Tour golf. And so listen, are there 3 or 4 times a year, Tambo, where course fit is completely irrelevant and the best player in the field just shows up and wins? We saw it last year at the American Express with Jon Rahm, right? The American Express is the exact same golf course as this. It's the type of golf course that completely devalues all of the advantage that a guy like Jon Rahm has at Torrey Pines or a US Open venue or Augusta. But he's still Jon Rahm, so he can win the American Express if he shows up, even though his path to winning the American Express is more difficult than it would be a golf course that accentuates his skill a little bit farther. I don't know if Ludwig's not that guy yet, but he's the best player in the field by my numbers, so he can absolutely still show up. I'm going to miss it this week if he does. In terms of 9s, Tambo, I'll kick it back to you. You want to get us started in the 9s?
Yeah, I want to say this first too. I haven't ridden a bike in many years, a mountain bike. You put one of them mongoose puppies on my front step, I'll wheelie it up the street if I have to. I'll remember how to ride a bike. JT Poston knows how to golf, so I never care about that. And nothing against Nick and his comment. I'm just saying when people say that stuff, I just don't care. Like that, I play DFS. I don't care about all that stuff. I care what the field's doing. I think Poston is fine here. He's 10,000. If he has a bad week, people will lean on that and say, well, this podcast did say this. Sure. But if he has a good week, what do they say then? So all I care about is that. Like our guy, Willie Z, coming back now. What are they going to say now? Remember when he got that playoff putt? That's what I'm thinking with something like that. I just don't care. 9Ks, though. One thing I think about, if I want to play a narrative, I'd rather play this narrative. Winners at this tournament the last 2 years. Tom Kim, Sung Jae Im. Who's Sung Jae Im's buddy who just got the gold medal too? Siwoo Kim. And stats-wise, again, it's not going to line up great. If you like someone who can putt, he ain't the guy. If you like someone who's been good with his wedges lately, not the guy. But overall, with those two aside, which I know that's what, like you said, that's what it ends up taking. It's 1 week of golf. He's $9,900. I think there's a huge weight, got to be a huge weight off of his shoulders, like coming back after that gold medal, feeling good. And maybe it goes the other way, but for me, I'm going to try it out here. I definitely like Siwoo. Someone said, yeah, Ross knows. I saw Rick posted it out earlier. He's there live. He said, Siwoo chilling with the broomstick. And so maybe that helps him too. Who knows? But Siwoo with the broomstick, when that's the only stat that's glaringly against him, maybe that's something that matters. So I like Siwoo. I like Cole, who I talked to you about earlier. Not sure where Cole's ownership. I can't really get a grasp on that one, where it actually ends up at. But then I like a couple other guys down at the bottom. So up at the top, Siwoo, Cole, Grillo, maybe just because it doesn't look like anybody wants to play him. Yeah. But where do you have ownership on some of these guys too?
Okay, so you mentioned Siwoo. I have Siwoo as probably the highest own in that range at around 17, 18-ish%, but Shank's not far behind. Shank's really popular this week. I bet Shank. I'm probably more likely to fade him in DraftKings just because there's another guy in this range that you mentioned as well that I'm a massive fan of as well. But I have Shank, Kim, and Cole all between 15 and 18, with Kim on the higher end and Shank in the middle and Cole on the lower end. You mentioned Cole earlier. Cole is number one in my model this week. And a large part of that is for the reason that we talked about with the off the tee stuff. I mean, that's been Cole's biggest bugaboo, is a driver. I mean, you look at his performance at the Sanderson Farms last week, and it's a perfect microcosm of the issue that Cole has had all season. The guy lost 3 strokes off the tee, gained 4 on approach, 4 around the greens. Like, the only reason that he isn't finishing in the top 20 last week is because he loses 3 strokes off the tee. Now you get him on a golf course where off the tee, it's probably the easiest golf course, as I've mentioned, to drive the ball. Like, the skill of driving at TPC Summerlin is so much lower than the average PGA Tour course that you have to imagine if Cole's ever going to get that breakthrough, it's going to be just thinking logically, right, at the golf course that helps him out in the department that he's weakest in. Not to mention the fact that I wouldn't call this a flop flag situation, Tambo, but the guy was pretty disappointing last week as like the highest priced option. It was kind of him and Jaeger that we were talking about last week. Is, are you going to go, if you're not going Ludwig, and he ended up being the answer, are you going Jaeger or Cole? Jaeger gave you that Sunday charge at least to finish T25-ish. Cole kind of had a pretty pedestrian week, finishing T35. Like, I think the ownership with Cole is going to be in check this week. I think 15, 16-ish% is very fair. And you're getting him at, in my opinion, the perfect golf course for him. This is as perfect as a spot from a course fit standpoint that you are going to see with Eric Cole all season until we get to maybe American Express or Pebble Beach. So Cole and Poston, like, those are my guys at the top, Tambo.
Yeah, I kicked out for a second there. I've been having these little in and out outages lately. I'm not sure since our last like hurricane backlash or tropical storm came up, it's been this way, but you got me back now, right?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, cool. So just a note on Cole, you brought it up, and I go a little longer term, and even in the longer term stats, he's horrible on only 2 stats: off the tee and fairways gained. After that, he's top 10, really top 8 in everything that matters, including first in opportunities gained, first in birdies or better, first in DK scoring, third with the putter, 7th on the wedges, and that you talked about, the 100 to 150 range, and then 8th on approach overall, solid tee to green because of all that. Like, you combine everything. So really, it's just a perfect spot. Like you said, if it doesn't work out, then so be it. I still actually do in tournaments, just based, again, I'm not sure where Cole's ownership will actually turn out at, but I still do like, mixing him in with some of these guys, but he's definitely the guy there that you sort of talked me into that stood out on my numbers as well. So I like that. Down at the bottom, they asked, did we talk Hadwin yet? Did you have something on Hadwin you want to talk about?
I'm pretty neutral on Hadwin. What do you have his ownership at, Tambo? Because he's been kind of across the map at a couple of sites I look at. I have him like settling around 13%, but I've seen him as low as like 8 and as high as 15.
We're somewhere in the middle. I have him at 11 right now, and I have Shank closer to 17 right below him.
Right. I think that's right. Any thoughts on Hojgaard before and what about your boy Herbert? Because Herbert is going to be like, I think Herbert and Grillo are both going to be 5, right? Herbert might be like 3 or 4, honestly.
I've got Herbert at 5 and Grillo at 6. That's kind of the two that stood out from the tournament angle. Grillo a little bit more. He actually is Grillo is like a Eric Cole light on the numbers, but he also won a tournament recently, and it's, he's won tournaments. So you can say it from that angle. Herbert, though, was the guy of the H's, the Hojgaards, the Hadwins, and the Herberts that I had standing out as just a guy that I always play as a tournament play. Again, you go look at him, the numbers are not great across the board, but you talk about somebody who can find a putter, and that's all it can take at an event like this. He's someone that stood out to me. So at 9K, definitely have interest in him. So for me, Siwoo, Cole, Grillo, and Herbert were sort of the 4 guys that stood out to me in this range.
Yeah, pretty much just Cole for me. Cole, because I'm really heavy on Cole posting, and I'm kind of making a Cam Davis decision as well. I'll play one of those 2 guys, but mainly because I think the 8s are awesome this week. I mean, it's so interesting, Tambo, because I write a lot about how often we see the 8K range get neglected. And the reason why that is not happening this fall swing, my theory behind this is because we do not have like a real 11K or 10K range on a week-to-week basis thus far in the fall swing. So usually that crazy ownership that we get in the mid to high 7s, you're able to utilize the 8s far more often when there's only 4 guys in the 10K range and only 1 guy at 11K. Last week, it was even starker, right? So this 8K range, there's still options. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's some low owned guys that we could talk about too, but this is a big range with like a lot of guys I like. And some of them are going to be fairly popular in my opinion. Mainly, I think we should probably start with Hoagie, because I have that number pretty high right now, to the point of like, it's getting a little irresponsible for me, but like I have Hoagie clearing 20% as we stand here on Wednesday evening.
Yeah, I had 18%. So if you think he gets over 20, obviously it gets even worse for him in this grade, only because of what's around him, though. You have literally, you've got Spawn, Norman, Rye, Smalley, List just won the damn tournament. Like, I don't know how this happens, but I guess people just want to get in on Hoagie. But that's definitely a spot where, like you said, a little bit, maybe not irresponsible as much as just crazy considering what's around him. But, if you like him, play your guy and get different elsewhere. Who are some of the other guys in this range that stand out to you?
I love Alex Smalley this week. I think that if you liked him last week at the Sanderson Farm, which we did, we talked about Smalley. Actually, there are a couple guys that we liked at the Sanderson Farms, all in this range that I like just as much this week. Hubbard's another one of those guys that was very kind to us last week as well. But listen, I mean, Smalley, you're getting him on another golf course where he can go out and play aggressive. He's one of the better wedge players in this entire field, one of the better overall iron players in this entire field. Hit the ball great last week at the Sanderson Farms, and now you're catching him in a spot where I just think that because of the amount of options in this range, he's just kind of going to get lost. Like, I have him around 10-ish% maybe for Smalley right now. Maybe that creeps up a little bit as the afternoon goes on, but I think that Svensson and Putnam are both going to be pretty popular. Like, I have Putnam hovering around 16, 17 and Svensson in the honestly 15-ish% zone as well. I'm happy to play Smalley ahead of those guys and then drop down to Hubbard and Bezadenhout, who I'm a massive fan of as well. If you're talking my favorite low-owned guy, probably Aaron Rye at 8,800. So the 4 guys for me in this range, Rye, Smalley, Hubbard, Bezadenhout. What about you?
Little bit different. One guy I won't let the ownership sway me on is Putnam, actually. And this is maybe one of my calls.
I bet him. Yeah.
But the thing is, for me, I always look at strength of field. This field is not strong. You just talked about it. You go back 10th at the BMW Championship, 24th at the FedEx St. Jude, 26th, 27th at the Wyndham, made the cut at the Open and the Scottish, made the cut at all the tough events, really just came 40 to 50th in the US Open, the Travelers, the Open. Like those are all made, like two majors in there, 5th at the Memorial. Like to me, that stuff stands out way more. I'm just playing him on a strength of field case where he's less than the average salary and he's 8,300. I know he's getting to 15% ownership, but I'm just going to have to figure it out elsewhere. That's fine. So I do like him. I still like my guy Hostler. He treated me well last week. I like your Hubbard call. I do like this range quite a bit. I'm always a Spawn and Rye type of guy. So Smalley, I'll put into the $200 single entry. I'll mark him in as the first one in because I wanted to get some action to him anyway. And then you go back and look. This is the thing about his numbers. We talked about Eric Cole. The two other guys in the 8K range that have Eric Cole type numbers, really there's three, but I'll give it to two, is Rye and Smalley. Rye, very good with the wedges. Again, he hits fairways and we know all that stuff. It's not as important, but DK scoring, he's there. Approach game, he's there. Smalley, approach game, opportunities game, DK scoring, longer par fives off the tee, wedge game good, just has to find a putter. So I kind of really like those two guys up top, but my favorites are Putnam and Hostler down at the bottom.
Just based on our shared kind of the conclusion that we've come to around course fit, I almost think we should put Cole in there too, unless there's somebody that the two of us have. Because I like the idea of like you and I kind of come to a consensus on two, or if there's one guy that we are just absolutely riding for, you and I each have a slot. And then the other four go completely to wherever the chat is swaying us. Unless there's a guy in the sevens that we are totally aligned with, I almost feel like Cole should be our second guy in too.
Let's go Cole and Smalley to start it off. We'll get it rolling here. For those that don't know what we're talking about, we're building a $200 single entry. While we're on here, don't dupe us, please. But we are going to build this, and then it pays this week. I'll double check it. I think it said 10,000.
Yeah. Well, no point to dupe us either, because if you're in the chat, like you have a stake in this as well. Like we're giving the money away if it hits.
Yeah. You guys are the only ones that know that we're giving this money away. So keep that in mind, definitely. And I like starting with those two. It's two American flags, by the way. You won't see it probably here. It's not going to be good enough on this camera, but no pictures for our guys, Eric Cole and Smalley. So got to get one of them a W here. So hopefully DraftKings can get them a picture, but anybody else you want to talk about in that 8K range? If not, we'll go to the sevens. Before we do, did we say we're off Neesmith, or did you might have mentioned it that obviously he's getting ownership, right?
We haven't gotten to Neesmith. No, for what it's worth, I am off Neesmith. I have Neesmith as like maybe the highest owned player in the entire sevens. So I think as a pure ownership discussion, it's kind of easy to pivot off of him. I think a pretty hard and fast rule of avoiding 15% 7,100 guys has not hurt me in DraftKings, Tambo. So I think you can apply that to Matt Neesmith this week.
Yeah, and the best one so far, Ross. I was saying about how Hoagie's getting the ownership. Yeah, people that can't get Tom Kim, they just click in Tom Hoagie. Forget it, right? They're good. They feel good about that. His course history, his form, okay, fine, whatever, top 20s mixed in and stuff, sure. But that might be the reason. Donkey Chalk on Hoagie. Yeah, Degenerate 75 coming up next. After we get off this show, you can go to his channel and watch his show. I will be, and it's going to be good. But I can almost imagine the two guys we just mentioned, Matthew Neesmith and Hoagie. There's two of your Donkey Chalk. And then Cameron says this, which we just kind of talked about. I don't know if that's how it will end, but skipping the 10K and starting in the 9K. Like if Cole ends up being our first guy in, I won't be mad. I'll be okay with that. And I know you're leaving. Like there's some FOMO of, the fear of missing out on Poston and Davis and Kim and Ludwig, but I'd be okay with it. Like, honestly, I would. And then this Nick knows Hoagie with the craps table so close scares me. That's where he's going if he misses the cut. That's where he's going if he makes the cut. So figure that one out if you want. But let's get into the 7K range, Andy. Let's talk about this and see if we do align on some of these guys. We've got Higo down to, I don't know how many guys are in this range this week. It looks like back to the norm, like 30-ish, 36 within this range.
Yeah. I guess I'll start by identifying the guys that you may want to worry about in terms of ownership. We already mentioned Neesmith. I have Neesmith at 15.5 right now, give or take. The other guy that I have very surprisingly high to me is Sam Ryder, Tambo. I don't know if you're seeing the Ryder buzz that I am
Yeah,
as well, but I have Ryder as high as like 16, 17%,
I had him
which
closer to 13, but Ryder Cup buzz might be part
God,
of it.
I hope you're right. I don't understand that at all. I think he's fine, but I don't think he's 16% worthy in a field like this at 7,400. This is like a big point of contention between me and my friend Jeff Feinberg, who we do the Monday show together for Odds Checker. I don't understand the Davis Thompson thing like at all. Like I need somebody to explain the Davis Thompson love to me every single week like I'm a toddler, because statistically it doesn't make any sense to me at all.
You didn't like him last week though, and I did like him, and he got 16th. So
he did get 16th. Okay, so that's fair. Yeah. So listen, maybe I'll always be the first to admit, like I'll stand back on Thompson if the guy's coming off a 16th place finish. That's something you can at least hang your hat on for sure. And then the only other guy that I'm seeing that I feel confident will clear 10 is Suh, who I am not a Suh guy at all. Never have been. I think he is pretty poor ball striker, but I guess you can make the argument that if putting is a large part of your calculus this week, then you'd probably feel better about Suh on this golf course than other golf courses, but I still think they're better options.
Yeah, he knows the course so well, is what they say. So don't know if that's going to matter in the end.
Is that Ryder or Suh?
Suh's
he's a Vegas guy.
Yeah, I think he's like a member too. I can't remember exactly. I'd have to look it up and see, but I'm almost positive.
Well, it's public, but he might practice there. There are a lot of Vegas guys. Like I'm sure we'll get to the Harry Hall buzz this week as well, but there are a lot of Vegas guys. It doesn't always work out that way.
Here it was. Rick Run Good, the Run Good Rundown, Rick's newsletter said, speaking of home games, there are a lot of guys who play out of TPC Summerlin who you'll see in the field this week. Doug Gim and Justin Suh are the most notable, but let me remind you of Harry Hall, who loves his home cooking. 16 strokes on the field in his 8 rounds at TPC Summerlin, so he's up there, as well as some of the other guys that, some only have the 4 rounds. Obviously, Tom Kim Pops, the guy won the tournament in the time he played it. So that would be why. But yeah, that's the little Justin Suh nugget from our friend Rick over at rickrungood.com. Promo code Andy if you guys want to check it out and get those tools. So Ramey, last man in, we'll get to that later.
Tom Jacobs.
I don't know if I can go back to EVR if I've never been there in the first place. So, that's the problem with the guy.
I was on him last week. So we might have mentioned him on this show. As of now, I'm out on EVR. I'm not going back to the well.
This is interesting. For some reason, he popped a little in my stuff. So someone else mentioning it, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but said missed the cut last week, but 4 of his last six in the top 31, and he's 6,100. Poston is not in the lineup yet. We just talked about
yeah.
Sam Ryder on the commercials. Yeah, that's where it's coming from. Ryder Cup plus Sam Ryder. Ekro, we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah, I don't mind him, Stewie.
Is there a matchup versus his sister? Are we making Lexi Thompson jokes, or is that something else? I don't know. We'll have to see.
Oh gosh, what is she, Min Tambo? I didn't even look.
Is she Min or Men?
Min Price.
Oh, Min Price. I was gonna say she's 6,100 in this field. She did not make the Min Price. Guys that she's ahead of: Max McGreevy, my Canadian fellow friend Michael Gligic, Tommy Gainey, Jim Herman, Brian Stewart, Nick Watney, and Craig Hocknell. She's ahead of all those guys. She is the same price as Duffner, who we just talked about, Echeverria, Westmoreland, Brem, Fratelli, Paul Haley, you've mentioned in the past, Andrew Landry, and a few others. Trevor Werbelow. Lots of guys there in the mix. But she's 6,100. She made the mid.
That's what Westmoreland's like really good. One of the guys I play golf with in in Los Angeles, has a place in Vegas, and Westmoreland is staying with him for this tournament. I'm actually going to get him on the pod pretty soon.
Nice.
I don't understand. Okay. Yeah. So give me all the Westmoreland over Lexi love if anyone has interest in going on a head to head in that. But I'm excited to watch her play, Tambo. But do you have any expectations for her this week?
No, I think it's awesome for the game. Like, just it's something different. We can mix it in. We can have some fun with it. See how it goes. It is a kind of exciting from that angle. I don't even think you can get a matchup bet. Like, there's got to be no way, right?
No chance they're doing it. What's surprising to me is I know Lexi's like a pretty reputable star on the LPGA. Like, she has kind of more of a name brand, but she's having like the worst season of her career, which I thought was kind of an interesting choice for a sponsor's exception if you're going to go that route, because you know that people, bozos, right? Like annoying people on the internet are going to use this as a way to judge women's professional golf and judge the LPGA tour if she plays poorly. So I don't know, if I was the LPGA tour, she wouldn't be the gladiator I'd be sending to battle right now. But in fairness, one thing she does have going for her is she's like one of the longest females on the LPGA. So I think that could maybe help her, but she's not Westmoreland long. I can tell
No,
you
I
that
saw
right
the stat
now.
too. Like, she's definitely one of the longer drivers on the LPGA, but it was like 270 to 275 range or something. Like, it's not gonna.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see how it's gonna play. But again, changing it up, getting something different in there, I'm fine with that. It's exciting. Like, what if she does do? I don't think she will. Is the only thing. But imagine if she did, that would at least make it something. Jason brings up another point here. Webb is 7K. Man, in this field, it's like, again, I don't know if the layoff was good. I don't know. Obviously, long-term form, like you talk about, is going to be where you're going to get this from. But, man, it's still pretty tough. What has he been up to here? Just pulling it up.
I think it's a no for me, Jason.
Fifth at the Wyndham. Looked good there.
Yeah.
But then that's August, too. Yeah. This is October.
He's played well. He's played well in this course before, in fairness. So I don't think it's crazy to throw out.
Gotta talk about this for 2 seconds. So Dylan Wu, after complaining about something else on Twitter, ends up getting into the field anyway. And then, but DraftKings made it a clear statement today. I posted it out. Wu and Nicholas Lindheim both are not eligible. They didn't make it to Classic Slate. So the Monday qualifiers, a guy like Andrew Novak is down there at 6,300, who shot like a 900 to get into this thing. I don't hate that, but he got in. The Monday Q guys got in. These two did not. The late ads, so they'll be available for round 2 showdown and beyond. They got him in the late round 1 showdown, but I don't know who plays that. So, moving on from that one.
Yeah.
I like Joel Damon here. I know Justin Lowers is probably okay too, but I just don't play
I'll go EVR in that three ball.
Okay, you're going to stick with your guy.
I'll stick with
any Ben Griffin love? I think a lot of people love him. I see him, 14 to 15% right now.
Really? That high? I've got him a little lower. I have kind of at like 10%. But no Ben Griffin love for me. What about you?
Who was the other guy you said in this range that was going to get the love, though? Because I might just swap a little around there. I don't see Ben Griffin getting to like 15 either. So if I put him at
7,500, I mean, yeah, if you would you consider Davis Thompson at 78 in that range? Because I have Davis at 14%.
I think it was Justin Suh you had said, and then we talked about that for that reason. So that's good. I'm good with my numbers here now. But CT Pan, I didn't see much on CT Pan that I was going with. So if you like him, it's going to be low owned, I think.
There. No.
7.6 or less. We got like 16 minutes till the top of the hour, and that's what we plan to get on building this lineup soon anyway. But we're getting to the bottom of these 7Ks. Is there a favorite?
We'll give an answer for that, Gavin, shortly. Yeah.
Damon 5 for 5 missed cuts here, sub 7K. We're gonna go there in a second. Hammer Lexi's over on Prize Picks. Yeah, I guess maybe. I don't know what's going on over
74 is still too high. The golf course is too easy. Like, that's the only issue that I have with. You have to make some serious mistakes to shoot 3 over par on this golf course. So that's the problem with the 74 for me.
This one too, my guy Jason, love this guy, but past champ, type in the chat what year he won this for us all. Let's see. We'll wait for that.
It's like Ryan Moore, I think. Yeah. Ross, yes. Like, I actually really like Ryan Moore. Ryan Moore is in my pool. I am very much overweight on Ryan Moore. He is another past champion as well. I think Moore won in 2012, if memory serves correctly. And the irons have still been really solid with him. So I would say that he, as well as ex-sensation Michael Kim, are probably my favorite 6K guys, and Moore is firmly in my pool. So I'm totally on board with you there, Ross.
I'm just going to share this for 2 seconds, Andy. I'm going to move us around for a second just so I can get this set up, because I'm going to show a couple things off. But Lee Aldrich on Twitter, DK Golf Bargains, he just joined us. He's doing a couple things over at the site. If you don't, follow Lee, you don't follow Andy, or you only follow Andy and not Lee or me or anything like that, and you're here watching Andy, obviously Andy's doing some football stuff with us this season, killing it with the NFL betting chat in the Discord, in there all the time, just talking about all kinds of stuff beyond just the bets. The record is solid so far, though. Some great prop bets he's throwing in there from some friends and stuff like that, too. So that are, playing big time bets. So I think it's a good spot to be for that. I'll show you more on that in a second. But this is just funny about the Webb Simpson thing, because Lee brought over his course fit rankings, and Webb pops the Tom Kim we already talked about, but Ryan Moore, who we mentioned, JT Poston, Cam Davis, two of the guys that you and I both liked up top, and then Ryan Moore pops as well. I go look at Ryan Moore. He is in the last and long term, he's top 12 in approach, opportunities gained, the wedge game, and then he hits fairways. We know that. It's not that it's as important here, but I just thought that was interesting that he brought it up. But just so you guys know, other stuff, and then I'll kick it to you, Andy. Like, Lee, this article is free. You can go to shipitnation.com, just go to PGA and select value report. You could see Lee's breakdown on all these guys, SH Kim, what he thinks about Sam Ryder, Martin Laird, Russell Knox. He does break down Ryan Moore on this sheet. It shows a sample of the course fit rankings. If you go to the tier rankings and you're a member, you can see Lee's plays over 8,000 and above. So check it out. But just to show you guys quickly, if you want to sign in, the promo code here is also Andy, but you can go into like the monthly, $69 a month. You get everything. NFL, MLB, NBA is coming up on October 24th. PGA, we're talking about it right now. MMA is crushing it every single week. We've had multiple weeks where members ship the main GPP up top. There was a period where there was 3 out of 4 weeks they hit it. And then NHL started back yesterday, all this and more. And then we also added education for NFL and NBA. But just go here to have a coupon. Type in Andy. It's this easy. It locks you in. It's not a one-time code, anything like that. It works out to somewhere around $12, $13 a week. If you sign up with this and just try it out for a month, you get full access to the Discord, everything. And if you are going to be playing some of the other sports, you can see here, we've done the courses. We did the NFL edition. We just launched the NBA edition. So you can go here. It's a 2-hour video course, breaking it down. There's the process, the roster construction, the live finals and qualifiers, questions and answers. Download the audio, hoop, title, and myself, broke it all down. You can see it here, all this stuff. Tools, projections, ownership, creating your own process, goals, mindset, all the types of styles that you can play, roster construction, late news, injuries, everything. So if you're going to play another sport and try it out, don't jump in before you do something like this and get in on the action that way. Andy, I'll take it back here to you, man. Any further thoughts on this lower 7K range before we go to the 6s?
Well, real quick, you got me super hyped for NBA season. I've started my NBA research already. The NBA model was, I'm still fine tuning it. It wasn't as the problem with the NBA, Tambo, is what you just touched on, the late injury news. That's the issue with like DFS NBA. But I will absolutely, I'm going to throw a bunch of futures bets and stuff like that in the Discord, because I've had a ton of success with the win totals in the NBA the same way that I have with NFL, but that's for another time. To talk about the low 7s, because we did get asked what is the favorite play below 7,600. I will highlight 2 guys quickly, and this kind of answers the Zach Mitchell question that you have posted. I think Nick Taylor is like $1,500 too cheap. I don't understand why Nick Taylor is in the $8,000 range. Like this is a guy who made the tour championship. Like the only difference between Nick Taylor and Adam Schenk is that Nick Taylor won, and you have Adam Schenk at 9,200 and Nick Taylor at 7,100. That makes zero sense to me. I was talking about this with our guy Jesse Tambo last night. Like Nick Taylor's an egregious misprice, an egregious misprice for the player that he is. Like he's going to be on the President's Cup team probably. Like Nick Taylor's a good golfer. He should be 8,500 bare minimum in this field. I don't care that we haven't seen him yet this year. That is just a pure opportunity to capitalize on a misprice. And I have him at like 5%. So don't even worry too much about ownership there. And then the other guy, although I want to give this with a caveat, Tambo, because we talked about him last week. I wrote him up in my Rick Run Good article. And this is my guy. I'm going to continue to ride him. We're going right back to Peter Quest. Although I got to say, Tambo, and I'm not one of those guys. I hate being the guys that comes on the show and is like, here's like, I don't want to talk about this guy. Here's my secret. Cause I know how much we affect ownership. Like I think the guys that come on and act like they affect ownership more than they actually do. It's a little tacky for me, but I was looking at the Quest. We go on all about Quest last week. And then at one of the contests that I'm playing in, the 3 max or the 20 max, the $3 20 max, Quest is 21% last week at the Sanderson Farms in the $3 20 max. So it's just another opportunity where it's like, gosh, there's no content this week. So I will say that, like, again, I don't like being that guy that like says, oh, we're these market leaders that have this massive effect on ownership. But I will say some of the players that you see get talked about in podcasts, not necessarily just this one, like got to give a little bit of a bump to them. Like, do not be shocked if some of the guys that we highlight come in maybe a couple percentage points higher. This depends on contest too, but like I had Quest projected at 6-7%. He was 21% in the 20 max last week.
So what did you say Nick Taylor was?
For my
ownership.
5%.
Yeah, I'm going to say 11.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I think it's already like your thought is my thought is other people's thought is a lazy week equals double what you think. So let's say he's 10 to 11%. Now I know the good news is there's guys like Quest and Neesmith and others around him that can, what we say, keep him in check. But he's still going to be popular somewhat because I think people still go there. If not, even better discount for us. Because like you said, I think that price is just bad. That was my favorite play in this range. So we'll go to the 6Ks. Before we do, real quick, Sean's already taken the course. He says NBA course is incredible. So if that can't get you more fired up. And then Ross said it best. That's how you get the advantage. Good news. Andy's in the Discord. So if you want to find Andy over at SHIPIT Nation, he's in the Discord already. NBA Discord is where it's going to be at. You do have to be ready and have your time available. But, that's kind of the angle. And then Scott, Stewie. I was going to call you Scott, but we all know you as Stewie. It's your real name, though. But this is the thing about this show. I know it's the swing season, and we're here doing it. This is just a show. You put the work in now. We'll be back. We'll be here all season. It's not going anywhere. It'll be a lot busier when the season gets going. We'll still try and answer as many as possible. But that's sort of the premise of this show. When Andy and I decided to start this show together, we wanted to do something. We made sure number one on our list was that it was going to be interactive, engaging, answering your questions while still bringing in the late thoughts of the lineups and the tiers, because everyone already does that. I do a first look on Fantasy Golf Degenerates. Andy talks about stuff on Inside Golf Podcast. We all have other shows. I talk with Mayo during the regular season. There's lots going to happen, and I'll have a show with Hoop and all this stuff. But for trying to do something differently, and then our other main focus was that single entry to 3 max. Anything we make with the single entry, or you guys can start throwing your plays in now too, by the way, when we go to the 6K range, start throwing some thoughts out there. Andy and I will make decisions based off of that on guys you want us to put in the single entry and why. But that was the other premise, is we know a lot of people, especially this time of year, but even regular week to week, smaller budget, just want to play a lineup, want to have something that's competitive. Don't worry too much about the fear of missing out of, but if I don't play this guy up top, I'm screwed. You can get around that. We see it every single week. So definitely think of it from that perspective. And then, a big Kim stack, SH Kim, who we didn't talk about. You got Tom Kim, Siwoo Kim, lots of options in here, but I don't think it's going to be that crazy that people go there. Michael Kim is at the bottom too. He's looking all right, but people
just want to hit on too. I want to make sure, because I want to make sure we get to every single guy, even if it's very brief, that's thrown out there. We the people, I love Mark Hubbard this week. He's absolutely in my pool. Stewie. I like Eckroat. I don't love Eckroat. He's kind of like a borderline play for me right now. I'm kind of deciding at the bottom of that range between like guys like Davis Riley, Eckroat, Streelman, Akshay, but he's playable. Like I am not anti by any means. He's on my short list. Haven't made a final decision yet. But 6K guys, just to touch on briefly, Tambo. I mentioned Ryan Moore. I like Ryan Moore a lot. The only other guys I have highlighted, my guy Nate Lashley and Twitter superstar Michael Kim. I'm not playing Harry Hall. I understand Harry Hall, but I am not playing Harry Hall.
Okay. And Jason brings up another guy. I made fun of it earlier. I think I missed it when he brought it back. He said just a GPP play. It was 2013 was when Webb won this tournament. So again, I'm just making fun of it. Jason knows this. We get along good in that way. But I do like this call, and I always go back to KH Lee. So I will have some KH Lee in the pool this week as well. He's 7,600. Forgot to mention him up above there when we talked about some of those other guys. Andy, well, these guys, again, guys, throw your plays that you want us to put in the single entry in the chat. We got about 5 minutes left. We have Eric Cole and Alex Smalley are the only two guys in there so far. So throw your guys into the chat that you want us to put into this lineup. We'll take the first thoughts and ones that we connect on and then see where we land, compare a 2v2 to round out the show, probably something like that. But Andy, anybody else in the 6Ks that you wanted to mention? I know you mentioned Michael Kim and a couple others, but anybody else that stood out for you?
No, although I think we might have to play Ramey. How much is our guy Chad Ramey at? This is like the second or third Ramey comment we've seen. And yeah, Sean mentions too, like, I think if we're both on the same page about the Nick Taylor misprice at 7,100, I feel like we have to play him, Tambo.
Oh yeah, I have him in. I just forgot to tell you about that.
Okay.
So there's only 2 spots left if we add in your guy, Ramey, who I like actually. And one thing about Ramey, I don't think I have it here in front of me because whatever reason DraftKings took that off, but just to pull it up quickly because I got the tournament stats here. Ramey in round 3 last week, I loved him in round 4 because in round 3, he shot a 5 under. He had 1 bogey, but he missed like 3 of the par 5s and gained like 3 on approach and lost with the putt. Like he had a great week. So I definitely like Ramey here anyway. I kind of like bleeding that into this week if you can sometimes, where it's just something you thought about on that. And then, of course, Nick Taylor's Canadian. We always play on my guy who loves him, Canadian boy, Nick Taylor. So, Andy, this leaves us 2 minutes left and $8,800 per player.
Well, you know who is $8,800 is our guy, the Candyman, Vincent Norman.
I do like him.
Who Jack
we can play Norman Rye. Norman Rye rounds it out.
We can play Norman and Rye. So that puts us at like a very heavy, balanced 8K build. How much is Ramey, by the way?
7K. We actually don't touch the 6 is why I kind of like this. It's Cole, 3 8K guys, and 2 low 7s. That's definitely a unique way because anyone going to Ramey and Taylor is going above Cole.
Oh, for sure.
They have to be.
For sure.
They have to be. So
for sure. I like Aaron Rye, by the way. Are you a fan of Rye this week? You are.
Oh, yeah.
Low owned too, by the way. Like, I think that we're gonna get I think the only other, because we've seen some Adam Hadwin love in the chat. Like, I think there are 2v2 opportunities here between, if you were to sub Rye and Norman, you could probably play Hadwin and one of those low 8K guys, like a Bezaden, Howard, Hubbard, maybe even Putnam.
It's Putnam. It's Hadwin. Putnam is the 2v2. I just don't like Hadwin that much. I like Putnam though a lot. So
yeah. So
I'm gonna play the double 8,800. Just make an executive decision. The reason is I'll tell people exactly why, and then we'll get out of here. But just so you know, I like the hedge of it because me personally, I do like that bottom range. Like I like List. We have Smalley already, but I like List, Putnam, Hostler, Hubbard. Like those guys are all awesome. So one thing this does unique is it sets me up where you can't get to those guys because you're playing Smalley and two $8,800 guys. The interesting part is the Hadwin one, but like I said, I'm actually okay with this. Who would you pick though? I guess, it only would be Hadwin because you have to move them both. I like that over Schenk in this lineup, and it would be Putnam. So Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna play the $2,800 guys in the $200 single entry. The top of the hour, though, man, I think we answered everything. A lot of people got involved, obviously, as the year goes on and the swing season moves on. We'll continue to have you guys covered here, same time, same place every week. Anything else you wanted to add, Andy, before we get out of here? Final thoughts for this week on the Shriners?
Last thing I'll say, I think there was one question in the chat. I just want to make sure I get every single one because that's big point of this show. One and done. I'm not playing any fall swing one and done, but I would go Poston or Eric Cole, one of those two. Like, I think there's a phenomenal spot for Eric Cole. I made all my bets on Monday morning, and he's like the biggest FOMO. If he ends up winning, he'll be in over 50% of my DraftKings lineups. But Poston or Eric Cole, who would be your one and done, Tambo?
I would probably side with Poston there and just ignore the talk about him not picking up a club or whatever. But I like Cole just as much as you do too. I think Cam Davis will be pretty popular.
Could also go. I mean, how many more times do you think we see Tom Kim this fall swing? Right?
Yeah, like I think he's going to be popular too. But if you want to play, if you don't care about popularity, it's just a fall swing contest. That's the other thing. You made a good call there. You do have to balance in on what you think these guys are going to play. So if you just want to collect the money and do that, you could definitely do it. I think it was Kevin earlier who's now talking about lineups with 500 on the table. He said, play Tom Kim. That's the end of the week. And you know what happens. So maybe that's the case. I don't have much else, Andy. So I'll get us out of here. If you guys do want to go over to SHIPITNation.com, sponsor of the show, you guys can check it out. Use promo code Andy. Check it out. It gets you 10% off any of the monthly plans. If you do just want to check it out for the 5-day trial, you can do it for $19. Just you don't get in Discord. We just talked about how important the Discord was. Yeah. That's my thing. It's mainly the trial. I think people want to try it because it's cheap, but you don't understand. That's the idea of getting in and seeing what the content is. There's lots there. It's still good, but you're missing one of the main pieces is the community aspect of it. The Discord's incredible.
That's the lifeblood. That's where I am. Like because I'm not writing for the site or doing anything like that. Like I do this free show, but the Discord for all the questions, like that's the place to be. Like, I think that's the best part of the entire deal is the community, in my opinion.
And all like, if you like my tidbits on Twitter, well, imagine that for every sport now. We're basically posting it in for every sport as it comes up. It's going to be super important in certain sports like that. Discord is lit. I mean, if it's, we'll talk about other shows and people bring it up, but check it out. When you do the $62 a month with promo code Andy, it basically works out. Like I said, it's like 13 or 14 bucks a week versus $19 for 5 days. And you get in the Discord, try it for a month and see what you think. I'm pretty sure you'll stick around. So check it out. SHIPITNation.com. That's going to do it for this one, guys, for the Shriners Open. Be back next week for the Zozo before a short break, and then back again on the 11th. Or no, the 1st, actually, of November. We'll be back for the Worldwide Technology. But next week, 7 p.m. Eastern, this channel. For Andy, for myself, ToeTagginTambo. Let's ship it!